Welcome to part 2 of this presentation. As we did with the first book, we are trying to find the source of this quote. Which novel depicts a society that's divided into castes, and the hero, Bernard, lives in a privileged society while a portion of the population is considered savage and live in primitive colonies? Of course, the answer is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, published in 1932. Largely set in a futuristic world state, inhabited by genetically modified citizens and an intelligence-based social hierarchy, the novel anticipates huge scientific advancements in reproductive technology, sleep learning, psychological manipulation, and classical conditioning that are combined to make a dystopian society which is challenged by only a single individual, the story's protagonist. Now, let's look at some prophecies from Brave New World. Huxley predicted genetic engineering. He dedicated the first chapter to detailing the different stages that embryos go through to produce the 5-tier hierarchical society. In Brave New World, scientists discovered ways to control embryos' intelligence level to produce the 5 social classes, from the smartest alphas, who occupy the most important jobs, until the epsilons, who are the least intelligent and are assigned simple jobs, such as elevator operators. In the past, this sounded like far-fetched science fiction. I was shocked to discover that a few months ago, the scientific community has announced the development of the CRISPR technology to modify genes, meaning we are closer than ever to a form or another of Huxley's prophecy. Let's watch this video together.
Every cell in our body contains a copy of our genome, over 20,000 genes, 3 billion letters of DNA. DNA consists of 2 strands twisted into a double helix and held together by a simple pairing rule. Our genes shape who we are as individuals and as a species. Genes also have profound effects on health, and thanks to advances in DNA sequencing, researchers have identified thousands of genes that affect our risk of disease. Changing genes in living cells is not easy, but recently a new method has been developed that promises to dramatically improve our ability to edit the DNA of any species, including humans. The CRISPR method is based on a natural system used by bacteria to protect themselves from infection by viruses. Over the past few years, researchers studying this system realized that it could be engineered to cut not just viral DNA, but any DNA sequence at a precisely chosen location. And this can be done not just in a test tube, but also within the nucleus of a living cell. It can also be done in a fertilized egg, allowing the creation of transgenic animals with targeted mutations. These methods are being improved rapidly and will have many applications in basic research, in drug development, in agriculture, and perhaps eventually for treating human patients with genetic disease.
In the second chapter of the novel, we see this quote that presents the idea that all classes of society are subjected to one form or another of intellectual conditioning. It says, "One believes in things because one has been conditioned to believe them." Huxley talks about the utilization of different types of conditioning, similar to the Pavlovian conditioning on different castes. For example, the use of electricity and loud sounds on the delta and epsilon children to get them to hate books and flowers. In this age, we are also exposed to similar types of conditioning. A simple ringtone prompts us to leave everything we're doing and grab our phone to see who left us a comment or a like. Hypnopedia, which is done in the novel during sleep, is a form of hypnosis or brainwashing. Now, Our brainwashing is achieved with the help of algorithms utilized by tech companies who are after maximizing our screen time. First, they study our tendencies and preferences. Then they feed us with tweets, videos, and posts that enforce our ideas and beliefs and drive us to the edge of extremism and fanaticism. Let's see what Tristan Harris, a tech ethics specialist, has to say about those issues.
There's this whole playbook of persuasive techniques that actually I learned when I was at the Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab, and that most people in Silicon Valley in the tech industry learned as ways of getting your attention. So one example is we are all vulnerable to social approval. We really care what other people think of us. So for example, when you upload a new photo, a new profile photo of yourself on Facebook, that's a moment where our mind is very vulnerable to knowing what other people think of my new profile photo. And so when we get new likes on our profile photo, Facebook, knowing this, could actually message me and say, oh, you have new likes on your profile photo. And it knows that we'll be vulnerable to that moment because we all really care about when we're tagged in a photo or when we have a new profile photo. Well, so another vulnerability in our mind is something called a variable schedule reward. And that's like a slot machine in Las Vegas. And the thing is that turns our phone into a slot machine, because every time we check our phone, we're playing the slot machine to see, what did I get, right? Every time that we check our email, we're playing the slot machine to see, what did I... And the problem is that this dynamic, these variable schedule rewards, or the slot machine mechanic, is so powerful that it's the best thing at addicting people and putting you in the zone. So how much on our phones, when we use our technology, Instagram is like a slot machine. What's going to come next on the feeds? Snapchat is a slot machine. Each time you see the red notifications and you don't know what's behind it, you're playing the slot machine when you click on it to see, what did I get, right? And so it's sprinkled all throughout these products because it's a very compelling way of getting people's attention.
Scary, huh? We now go to another prophecy, which is mental health and happiness. As we said before, the Brave New World community is built on the principle of happiness for all. This is achieved by the drug soma, or distraction and conditioning, so that each class is satisfied with its social status and never considers rebellion. Does this also apply to our world today? Let's see. Regarding mood-altering drugs, in Brave New World, they have soma. And one might think that the equivalent in our time is the use of recreational drugs to reach happiness. But, in my opinion, the equivalent in our time is actually medications, such as Prozac. They do have many benefits for mental illness, but are overprescribed for commercial gains and due to incompetence, to the point that America was described as the Prozac nation. Another way to avoid facing fears or any negative emotions in Brave New World is by distractions, such as feelies and orgy-porgies. This is currently achieved by addiction to TV, the net, trivial news, and porn. A book published in 1985 has warned of this danger. And the best articulation of this phenomenon was by Princeton professor and renowned activist Cornel West, who described it as governments utilizing weapons of mass distractions. This video talks about the difference between false and true happiness.
One dangerous definition of it is to think of happiness as kind of a warm, joyful, muscly feeling in your heart that you have to pursue and grab and hold on to for fear that it'll go away. A better way to think about happiness, that it actually is something that I think you can reach toward, is it's living in accord with your values and in a way that is more open and accepting of your history as it echoes into the present. That's more self-affirming, self-validating, and values-based. But commercial culture and our media is constantly encouraging us to think that if we feel good, we live well, and then we're only too happy, thank you very much, to sell you goods and services, from the dancing ovoids of the pill you can take, or the trips or the cars or the clothes or the women that you can get with, whatever that is that will give you the quick route to that. And it's an empty promise. I think we've got to find a way that's more compassionate, softer, that allows us to move forward towards the kind of lives that we really want to live.
Mass consumption was another prophecy by Huxley. The first quote tells us that getting rid of the old is better than repairing it. And the second points out that people's love for nature keeps no factories running, so it's better to abolish this love. Let's see how mass consumption is encouraged in our society. The social media is constantly bombarding us with dazzling pictures and posts of fancy products that make us want and not need to buy. We also lack meaningful control over the ads that keep popping up while we're logged on to YouTube, Google, or Facebook, or many other platforms. As for refurbishing and upgrading or reusing products, the fashion and technology industries almost make that impossible by forcing us to ending and not mending. There are more prophecies in the book, such as the marginalization of religion and the corruption of sexual, familial, and social relations. Unfortunately, we don't have time to discuss those prophecies and will move on to the last novel. See you in part 3.